Welcome to Between Two Clinicians, the podcast that gives you a backstage pass into the mind of two therapists. I'm Talia.
I'm Adam Luke. We've spent years helping others navigate the complexities of their minds and relationships.
In this podcast, we're flipping the script, and we're sharing our own unfiltered insights. No topic is off limits, and no issue too taboo. We're ready to tackle the tough stuff with honesty and empathy. Let's dive in. Hello. How are you, Adam?
I'm well, and you, Talia?
I'm also doing well. I'm very appreciative that we got to have our usual chat to lead in to this episode. I think it will be one for the books, and we're apparently right before the holidays. This snuck up on me. I don't know if it snuck up on you at all.
It did. I blinked, and here we are.
Yeah, it's been a what do they say with parenting? The days are long, but the years are short. I've never felt that more than this year, where I'm just like, it's not April anymore. It's going to be
every
November.
time I open my simple practice and it's like, you're not in August. And I'm like, what do you mean I'm not in August?
That's rude. Yes, I am. I'm in my heart, right? It's like the 5 o'clock somewhere. It's August somewhere.
My truth is it's August.
It's Q2 somewhere. It's good. Today's episode, we will be talking about a topic that you and I hold near and dear to our hearts. Those have been our top downloaded episodes in previous years doing this podcast around the holidays. Today will be invisible loyalties, why setting boundaries at the holidays feels so difficult. And I am greatly looking forward to this episode because I have so much life experience to draw from. And I'm also not burnt out by only seeing very intense cases where I can actually have some headspace to like conceptualize, and I get to hear about it through all of my supervisees, which is great because then I can give them feedback and then they can take it to give their clients feedback because I don't have to have that initial reaction with the client. So it'll be a unique perspective, I will say, on this episode. You are seeing a ton of private practice clients though, so I'm eager to hear what we can glean from your experience, as I'm sure many of them are already starting to talk about.
Oh yeah, you can feel the build. The build is happening where people are sitting in a space of going, oh, what the heck are we going to do? I've got to see people that I have strategically kept myself away from. All of a sudden, all of the dust ups of the last year are going to be sitting across from me. And what do I do with that?
Oh, yes. And with the advent of social media, sometimes we are more privy. I think that's one of the downsides of social media is we don't have the same ability to catch up with someone around the holidays. True. Because we might have had like a electronic front row seat to their life, if you will, if we follow them. Not necessarily the case with multi-generational families, but still worth mentioning in the beginning. You are going to be sitting across from people that either you want to and you're looking forward to seeing them, or you're like, really, Aunt Barb's coming? Like, do we have to?
Do we have to see Aunt Barb?
I don't love it. So when we were doing our little outline, one of the quotes or lines that was suggested to us, which I think is good to bring up, which we chatted a bit about off air, that the holidays can bring out, obviously, both the best and the worst in many families. And the real that a lot of our clients wish that they could just invite us to be like, see, do you see what I mean? This is exactly what I've been talking about. And we often, as the individual adult, feel pulled back in time or feel the pressure, sometimes without being consciously aware of it, most of the time without being consciously aware of it, that we have these invisible loyalties. We have these unseen emotional contracts that get passed down through multiple generations, and they shape how we give and take or feel obligated within our families. So it's beneficial for us to discuss this because a lot of you might be experiencing this and being like, wait, there's a thing for this. Like there's a name for it. Yes, it's called an invisible loyalty. And you can probably feel it as soon as you walk into the room or the kitchen or the living room or wherever you usually gather. You can mentally see, almost like a Sims character, who's closer to who's more estranged from whom. It's fascinating once you tune into it, the way that you can see this play out in your family. So I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm just sort of like mulling it around in my head and thinking about it. And I think that it's interesting because sometimes I'll hear from my clients, like, I don't have siblings. That's probably something that I see as like, I wish I could have that experience. But
Mm.
when I'm navigating this with clients and I'm hearing how the strategy already comes into play,
Mhm.
right? Like mom and dad haven't even reached out, but the siblings are talking about what time are you
Yep.
getting there?
Yep.
Who's doing
Yep.
this? So can we trade this, that, and the other? Are you going to go with Matt? Are you going to go with mom to mass on Sunday? And then I don't have to be there. What are we doing?
Mhm.
And what's interesting is that we will put so much time and effort in strategizing there on something that we still don't feel wholeheartedly drawn to.
Mm.
Like I think it actually is more of a heartbreak if parents recognize that my children are not doing things with me because they want to do these things with me, but because they feel obligated.
Yes.
And so, how can we have a healthy conversation and saying, I want to be very diligent and meaningful with my time?
Mhm.
But that might look different than how it has looked in the past.
Yes, that reminds me of the last year's episodes that we did around traditions and obligation, and when that becomes the motivating factor
Mhm.
to it's necessary, I think, for us today too to touch on why guilt even comes up, or why it is a motivating factor in people's behavioral choices to uphold certain traditions. This is where those invisible loyalties are tied to our behaviors. We have these unconscious commitments to certain family members, or I can't upset my mom. Oh, don't
Mm,
do that. Or, oh, Aunt Barb always does the pumpkin pie. I have to be the strong one. Whatever the
mhm,
narrative is or narratives are that keep you participating in a certain way within
mm,
a certain family system, or inform leaving a certain system that you no longer like to participate in, that's not without its own emotional underpinnings of, well,
mm.
I might have an easier time around the holidays because I'm not going to be overextended or stressed out, but I'm the last on the metaphorical totem pole, but at
Absolutely.
least my mom's happy. Why, as an adult,
Mm,
does that need to be done, right? The mask example is a great one.
mhm.
Why am I just doing this out of tradition? And like we've touched on, sometimes this is grain of salt. Sometimes it is just easier. All definitions of the word easier. Sometimes it's just easier to bite the bullet and be like, it's 30 minutes of my life, or an hour of my life, or for my family, it's like an
True.
hour and a half because it's the Catholic Mass and they do the whole thing. But it's kind of cool. And if you see the positive in it, right, there's like a cool nativity scene at the one that we go to, and they have somebody's real baby in the thing. And before I had a kid, I was like, that's so cool. And then once I had one, I was not in the headspace for Atlas to be that baby. But I was like, oh, how cool would that be to be a family sitting in the audience and get to see your kid be baby Jesus for whatever the year. So
Mhm,
sometimes we can develop, we're doing something that does uphold a loyalty to a
mm,
family system or a tradition, but we can reframe it and make it our own to make it more emotionally digestible and tolerable. That's
mhm,
not to say every tradition ought to be upheld. As you touched on earlier, sibling sets, as they get older, are usually what shakes up the tradition getting passed to, we always used to do it at so and so's house, but maybe now
mm.
this person has the most amount of youngest kids, so we're going to do it at their house to make it easier for them. Or none of the cousins have kids of their own yet, so we could do it at
Yeah.
anyone's house. Or we do a travel Thanksgiving and an at home
Mm,
Christmas. So being mindful of where these behavioral patterns stem from and how many of the uncomfortable ones
mm,
are upheld because it's an invisible loyalty is what I would recommend to listeners. Do an inventory for yourself.
mhm,
Why are you doing this? Why do you feel compelled to
mm.
do fill in the blank behavior?
I hate to be like just hammering back on that same point, but I think that it helps us first start to conceptualize this as like the last thing we want is to pass down the tradition that holidays are obligations.
So
So,
true.
like, how do we navigate that? So, you're not hearing me say, okay, so don't spend any time with your family. But I think that
Solution.
if we're going to talk about how we're going to implement boundaries, first is identifying the boundaries that you're willing to have. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what are the boundaries that you actually want? In many cases, we don't even conceptualize this when it comes to our family because the process feels so much like well, you receive this and this is what you have to deal with.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And there's the book that we reference with Invisible Loyalties. There's this concept called a relational ledger scorecard, basically,
Mm,
and this comes up so much. So we see this come up a lot when we're younger, parent-child
mm,
differential. We get a little bit of a break when even if we're partnered in like our teenage years or early 20s,
mhm,
when there's no in-law yet, we get a little respite. then when an in-law starts coming in and two become
True.
one, and now are we blending the family or not? Are we doing joint holidays or not? That's where there's another stressor on the system, because this family has their invisible loyalties. And let's say this family, for argument's sake, is like your nuclear family. So like me, my brother, and my parents, now my kid, but or you and your parents, or depending on the year, you, your mom, or you and your dad. And those extended families. So you have that system, like hold out your right hand. Then you meet somebody and they have in their left hand their own nuclear family with their own extended family. And now we're trying to blend the two, almost like the movie Four Christmases. So there's this relational ledger that comes out even more around the holidays, but especially so if you have a blended now, like, you know, two couples, two people are now a couple. Well, you spent so more time at your in-laws house than you did with us, or this in-law does this and this in-law. That's where a lot of conflict can stem from, that you and I know as therapists from years and generations ago, the Thanksgiving fight of whatever else, or the turkey thing of 2020 something, right? Like there's these fights or conflicts that are referenced because they were times where the invisible loyalties became visible and you almost couldn't unsee it. And there's now out loud scorekeeping. Well, that's not fair that you went to their house for Christmas brunch, and why can't you do this and that? And maybe the answer, like you said, is I enjoy being there more. There's less stress. There's less tension. It's easy. It's fun. They have more people. They have less people. We all have our various reasons how we want to enjoy the holidays or why we enjoy them. But the number one thing that I see with my clients who come in here that get stressed out is, I don't want to do this anymore. I'd rather do this thing instead. How do I advocate for myself is hard enough. The next question is, how do I do it without upsetting everyone? Tough shit, that's going to happen. Or how do I do it without feeling guilty? Except that you're probably going to feel guilty. And there's this kind of the emotional economy around the holidays, if you will, that it will feel somewhat like a score keep, but you're an adult. Like ideally, listening to this episode, you're an adult. You are capable of setting boundaries, even if it feels uncomfortable. It's a skill you can learn. You just have to be comfortable that this is,
you have to have a desire to learn it.
Yes. Thank you. Yes. You have to have a desire and a willingness to shift where your loyalties lie away from exclusively probably your family of origin, the family that you came from, and more towards the family that's coming from you. Even if you only have a partner, not of kids or anything yet, that person is going to, ideally, if you want to be with them long term, that you have to be loyal to that person. But a lot of times people they don't want to do it out of being disloyal to their partner. They do it out of being loyal to their family of origin, not realizing the collateral damage is their loyalty to their partner is questioned. Well, I thought the amount of fights. Well, I thought we were going to do that. I remember Thanksgiving one year. I think we were a year or two in, had to have been, a year. I think a year in. Oh, I can't wait to make a pie with you or this or that or whatever else. I'm like, great. I bring all the ingredients. And he's like, I'm going to go golf. And I was like, no, like we agreed to do this. I got here early. I left my family, this and that and this. Well, I told my dad I would go golf. And I'm like, but you told me that. If you want to do, I'm not upset about golf, to be clear.
Yeah.
I'm upset that you gave me your word and now you're going back on it because your dad asked and now you're people pleasing and falling into that pattern. But if you're not aware of the loyalties piece or being conscious of why it's upsetting, the fight that you have easily becomes about golf. It's not about golf. It's about a betrayal. It's about a lack of integrity. It's about people pleasing. And those are the topics that if you have a partner or when you're working with your family prepping for the holidays, those are the deeper issues that actually need to be addressed far more than this tradition of whatever. And maybe that is their tradition every year. Great. Then don't agree to make a pie with me. Like, I don't want to be sitting there in the kitchen hanging out with your mom. No offense. I mean, in retrospect, it was accurate that I didn't want that. But like, I didn't mind it at the time because I also felt this pull to be like, well, I want his parents to like me and I don't want to be. Yeah. So there's all these things in the first few years of you being together where you're acting in a way where you don't really know where your loyalties lie because you're trying to create this new relationship and there's multiple eyes on the relationship. So there's, I think, something to be said for being able to set those boundaries and uphold them earlier on. Yes, your relationship may not last, but isn't that better to find it out a year or two in before you actually have kids than how we see in our offices? 5-10 years in, now they're having kids and they're like, well, I've always hated going to your mother's house on this and that. And they're like, you said you loved it, right? And all these fights come out that they could have had earlier, but like you said, didn't have the skills to do so.
So how do you first start calling out these silent allegiances then?
This is not going to be a popular opinion, but you have to bring it up with, Terry Real talks about this a lot. You have to bring this up with your partner first, like blood handles blood. So if my partner has a problem with my mom, it's my job to hear my partner out. Doesn't mean I agree. Hear them out. What are the supporting reasons? And where there's validity and merit, my role is to then set that boundary with my parent or whoever the family member is. We've talked about this, that it's like you're the family ambassador for your own family that you come from. How do you start addressing this is having the topic of the conversation be what's underneath. It's not about the surface piece. It's being more aware of when you're going to someone's house. Oh, there's those two siblings. Let's say there's 5 siblings. Those are best friends. They don't talk. Being more observant is another skill that I would recommend rather than going in based on a fantasy or a projection. Can you be observant where there's certain tensions? Can you be observant or willing to hear out? Because a lot of times when you're first, right, I'm sure you remember your first holiday season with Jill. The first year, usually people get that prep talk in the car. Hey, so I know we've been dating a while and you've already met this, and this person, but this person, and you're just like sitting there like, oh, thanks for the download right before I walk into the war zone.
Remember how it was so nice and enjoyable last time we did this? It's not going to be like that.
It's not going to be like that. Yeah, right? And then they look at you and then you get, it's like 4 Christmases and then you get in the car and you're just like,
well, yeah, it's like at that moment, you're like in complete active recruitment. You're like,
100%.
So you're going to suffer with me and it's going to not be enjoyable, but we're going to do it for only 2 hours.
Yeah. Or if they might not have even reached that boundary yet, right? Like, why do we go to this house for 6 hours? Well, they did so much for me. I can't let them down. If I don't show up, they're going to think I'm whatever. I can't make my mom angry. Hearing those red flags potentially early on, it's not going to change. Just know that for now. If like it did not change, the loyalties did not change over 5+ years.
Do it now.
You're still going to go golfing every day. You don't care. Like there's certain systems that are in place when you join into a family that are not going to shift because the person participating doesn't want them to shift. So can you take an honest inventory and go, I'm okay being in this relationship for all the other things I get, knowing that's not going to shift. Yes, the holidays are only 2 times or about 2 times a year. We're looking at Thanksgiving and Christmas 6 weeks apart, or Hanukkah or any other holidays that are celebrated. The core of it, though, is this is where things come to a head and all the other patterns and invisible loyalties they have a spotlight on them. It doesn't mean they don't exist the rest of the year. We see this in subtle cues when there's funerals, birthdays, other holidays. It's not just the winter holidays that this gets brought up with. This could be Easter. This could be 4th of July. This is any family gathering where you're looking at where's the ledger, where's the relational ledger, and where's the score. So why to your point, like why boundaries can feel like a betrayal is if I don't have internally, this is my theory, if I internally don't have enough wherewithal to understand for this partnership to work, I need to not be as loyal to my family of origin. And you're starting out with unequal footing on levels of individuation, meaning how much of myself do I have available and to give. Absolutely. And where are my deferences going to be? If I'm giving deference to my parents still instead of my husband or my my wife, that's going to be a big problem for probably the more individuated partner. This is not to say that the script gets flipped and you have to blindly follow obediently whatever your spouse says. I'm not saying lose yourself in that sense, but you have to understand the boundaries come from, hey, I see it and I know that I need to choose my partner more often than not because that's the person who I want to grow old with. And hopefully the natural order of things is that your parents pass on before you and you outlive them and you get to watch your children grow up and then you pass on and they outlive. Like that's ideally the natural order. Thinking to the future of how is this boundary going to help 5-10 years from now, not just the discomfort of this current Thanksgiving or Christmas season. I would say step 1 is understand the boundary is not just the current conversation. It's to hopefully change the groove for years to come. I'm curious where you would start with the boundaries talk.
The first is that you nailed it. The awakening of like the car conversation.
Yeah.
Because I think that the beauty of having someone that joins you in life is
Yeah.
that a lot of times they come in without your biases,
Mhm.
and so the question starts
Mhm.
to be, "Why do we do this?"
Yes.
You know, and a lot of times you'll see, like, in couples counseling, then the side that's having the question asked to them becomes extremely defensive, and
Yes.
it's really more of, like, it's rooted in embarrassment of, like, "I've never thought about it in a different way. I've never thought that I didn't have to participate," right?
Mhm.
But if we move into the prompting of the question is just curiosity and it's not condemnation, then we can start moving in different ways of, like, you're right. I don't actually enjoy it that much. Or, like, I'll never forget I had one client that, like, outlined what they did on Christmas Day. And this is, mind you, this is a client that's, like, deep in their 30s, and it was 7 siblings, okay? So it ended up being, like,
Jeez.
I forget what they said. It was, like, 38 or 40 something people, but they had to spend the whole day together. Like
Oh,
like, breakfast is served at 7:30 in the morning, and
wow.
then you have to bring 3 changes of clothes because you have pajamas, and then you have, like, what you wear as you open
Yeah.
your presents, and then it's, like, the evening meal, you're going back to, like, a collared shirt or a dress or
Oh
whatever,
my.
and it was like, "This is some work," and I said, "That sounds like an amazing tradition. Uh, how long do you actually wanna be there?"
Yeah.
And they were like, "I absolutely loathe from noon on." And I was like,
Mm.
"Interesting." I was like, "So tell me, like, how does that play out?" And they did a really good job at articulating, they're like, "You just start to notice that we start to become more snippy with each other, the kids are starting to become more bratty," like, it's like, because that's a lot of time to spend together.
It's too much. Yeah.
Like,
That's a lot of masking.
it's a lot of messing. I said, "It's different when, you know, you've got 7 siblings and you guys are growing up, and, yeah, there's a lot of necessity in that, and we're not moving around, and you don't have your autonomy."
Mhm.
But once you've learned about autonomy and you've learned about boundaries, then it's really difficult to say, "Well, I'm gonna give you my whole day." And
Yeah.
so I said, "Well, what would happen if you just said, 'Hey, we're gonna come for, like, breakfast and brunch and opening the presents, and then, like, we're gonna bail.'" I'll never forget, they just, like, glassed over because it was like, "I've never even thought about that," like,
That's an option? Yeah.
and I jumped in and I said, "I understand that you, like, if this is a whole new thought process, it's a whole new thought process, so I'm not trying to shame and guilt the crap out of you either, but you just spent the last 15 minutes telling me you don't want to do this thing in the way that it's done." And
Mhm.
I think that those are the conversations we have to have in the beginning because we also need to talk about what type of holiday do we want to have. So, 'cause it's
Yes.
okay to also, I mean, we did it last Jill and I did it last year if we were going, uh Lorelai is getting more difficult just in age. She's not so portable. She absolutely hated her car seat at that time. Our family was roughly 90 minutes away, and our family was gonna eat dinner at 2:30, right? Like, they do the early afternoon, basically. Her nap time is at 1, right? So
Mm.
if we get on the road, get there at, let's say, 1, we're gonna be way too early, and then
Right.
at the same time, she's gotta go down at some point in time. So then it just started to, like, the more we wrapped our mind around it, the more we realized, like, there's no way that this is actually going to work. And so I remember making the phone call and saying, like, "We're not gonna be coming over for Christmas." And, you know, they were very gracious, but I could also feel how they were quite hurt by that as well. And I think that that's the other difficulty of this is, like, when you say, "These are the boundaries that I want to have in a relationship," I can't really come along and sympathize or empathize with the emotions that you're having, like, I'm sorry you're having, but it's not my responsibility to solve that. I'm literally the inverse is telling you, "Well, we'll do this, but it's gonna be terrible for us, but we don't want you to feel any complicated emotions."
You will feel complicated emotions would be my piece of feedback when you set a boundary and when you don't set a boundary. It's either I set a boundary with my family of origin and I upset them and have to feel
Mhm.
guilt, shame, betrayal, be accused of abandonment, what have you. And if I don't do that, then I'm creating uncomfortable
Mm.
emotions with my partner who I live with and ideally have sex with. And not to be crass, but probably don't want to disappoint the partner that you'd like to go home to and be intimate with. And it's not to say that that's what's motivating decisions, but you really do have to think about who you live with and spend majority of your time with. Hopefully when you're married and in a partnership isn't your family of origin. It's not to say that you can't have the, like, we go over on weekends and whatever. I'm not speaking to that, but who you wake up next to and go to sleep next to, I ideally would not like them to be pissed at me 24/7. And I'd
Mhm.
rather tolerate, especially if you only see your family once or twice a year, once 6 weeks
Mhm.
apart, or just once. I could talk. I like to therapize people, and that's a word. If it wasn't a word, it is now. I coach them into helping them understand who would you rather tolerate the
Mm.
disappointment from, and logically, where the brevity of time that you're going to be around those other people is probably like you're way less time with them than you are with your spouse or your significant other,
Mm.
and thinking of it like that. And I'm not saying, oh, fuck it all, like let's just disappoint whomever, but if you really, it's like, if nobody is going to win in this, I would rather the two of us come out alive and on top than have it be, well, at least I didn't piss my family off and now I have to hear about it from my spouse for the
Mm.
next 10 months till the next holiday. So there's something to be said for the boundaries are, again, not only for the day of, it's to ensure that
Mhm.
the loyalty to your spouse or your partner is staying intact far beyond that holiday. And that survival mode that we all go into when we're around our family of origin
Mm.
can be incredibly telling if we've never witnessed our partner in that setting.
Mhm.
Who do they turn into when they have to or are unconsciously enacting that invisible loyalty, where they're
Mm.
usually very helpful or they're very proactive? Are they then going to be the guy sitting in the armchair in the living room and not helping at all when we're at home? They're actually very proactive. It's like, I don't like this version of you. So that's why having these loyalties spoken out loud and these boundaries ahead of time, have these conversations before you walk in
Mhm.
the house, ideally not when your partner gives you the look of like, hi, can we talk in the kitchen, in a tone that no one hears. Like, I don't ever use that tone regularly unless I'm fucking pissed. And then they bring, oh, this and that. You're not going to get the best version of them because they're already in their mind going, but I can't piss off so and so, or I
Mm.
already told so and so this or that. Have the conversations early and often, and a reminder conversation in the car before you walk in. Hey, here's the lowdown. And if I need
Yeah.
you to protect our couple bubble or our family and I give you the high sign, it's time to go because our kid needs out, that has to be prioritized. That level of I need to put my family's needs first, making
Mm.
sure that you're somewhat close to on the same page about that with your spouse, ideally before they become your spouse, is something that I recommend. I could give advice on how to actually set a boundary, but the framework that needs to be laid out for
Mm.
what we, and like you and I as a therapist, could say, here's the boundary. So many people would try it out and go, well, it didn't work. Well, I don't know where you're trying it. I don't know where your loyalties are
Right.
lying before you try the boundary. We could script some of the best ones, and we have before in other episodes, but it's going to fall flat if the system is so lopsided that this person that you're married to is like back in the womb with their family, and you're like, I'm fine seeing my family once a year. Way different levels of individuation. And there's also something to be said for this, like, trauma response that sometimes people fall back into when they go home for the
Mhm.
holidays, and you get to see your partner and be like, oh, what a unique, fun expression of a version of you I haven't seen since we first dated and I coached you out of, or so I thought. I can't tell you how many wives typically that I talk to that are like, I trained it out of him. And I'm like, well, it's going to come back when he goes to who trained it in him. So I enjoy that conversation with his mom. I love that. Yeah. Hey there, listeners. Are you tired of settling for less than you deserve in your relationships? Do you ever feel like you're not being seen, heard, or valued the way that you want? Or maybe you've been wondering why you keep attracting the same kinds of people into your life, or why certain patterns seem to repeat themselves in your relationships. The answer might be deeper than you think, and you can find it in my new course. Rewire Your Relationships is a transformative course designed to help you stop settling for less than you deserve and start embodying your most confident, assertive, and authentic self in your relationships. You'll explore how your early experiences and parental influences have shaped your views on love, dating, and self-worth. This isn't just about tips and tricks for dating. It's about understanding the core beliefs that drive relationships that you attract. You'll learn how to break free from those old patterns and start creating the kind of connections that truly reflect who you are. Imagine stepping into a relationship with clarity and confidence, knowing you're attracting people who value and respect you for who you really are, your deeply authentic self. The Rewire Your Relationship course gives you the tools to rewrite your relationship story, one where you're no longer settling, but thriving. Visit taliabombola.com/rewireyourrelationships or check the link in the show notes for more.
It's kind of funny because you bring up something that we think of all the time when we have little kids, right? Which is when you have little kids, there's certain homes you don't let them go over to
Mm-hmm.
because it's nightmares when they return
Mm-hmm.
because there's no structure and so you do have this where all of a sudden spouses or significant others will be like, "Oh no, I've done so well over the last 12 months. I've trained
Yeah.
it out of he or
Yes.
she."
Yes.
And then you step right back into the old system, and guess what? Those behaviors come flooding back, right? It's it's almost like you have the
It's
Vietnam
spontaneous
flashback,
recovery. It's spontaneous recovery in behavioral conditioning.
where it's like you walk in, the door shuts, all of a sudden you hear "Fortunate Son" and the helicopter
Yes.
noises. Like
Yep. Exactly.
at that point, it's muscle memory, and
It
muscle
is.
memory is survive.
It is. Yeah.
And so something that you brought up that I want to touch on is like we sometimes forget that being the significant other at the party also feels really isolating, right?
Totally.
Because there is going to be this natural family dynamic that happens, and I don't think that it always has to be malicious. I know of many healthy families that they recognize and they try to bring those significant others in on it, but then you have other significant people who feel like I'm abandoned. You know, I step in that door and it's all inside jokes,
Yep.
and
Yep.
you guys are doing what you're going to do, and where is my usefulness in this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think
Mm-hmm.
that's also something that has to be talked about as well as, like, how do we incorporate our significant other? Or again, how are we mindful of not just automatically leaving them? Like, something that would happen all the time that Jill would get frustrated with, and I could understand it, is like I come from an agricultural background, right? So when we would be over at the family farm, and sure, it's Thanksgiving, it's Christmas, or whatever it is, there's always some sort of machine that needs to be fixed or
Mm.
something that needs to be done. And this is the first time we'll have all six guys there. And
Right.
so, guess what? If there's heavy work, it's going to be done. Well, in the beginning, she was lost because here, walk her in, talk to grandma, hello, aunt,
Yeah.
all this stuff.
Yep.
Then you turn around and I was gone, right? And then how do you go find a person on 30 something acres of like,
Yeah.
where are you? What are you doing? And there's that aspect of recognizing like when you go home, I don't want to say that they're no longer your family. They are your family, but you're bringing your family unit with you.
Yeah.
And you need to have that thought process of when this is no longer mutually beneficial for the family systems, it's then my responsibility to make the decision that's going to be the best for my family system.
Yeah. The one you go home with. Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
Don't let family traditions screw your sex life.
There's
That's
your
what
episode.
happens.
Yeah. But it does. It does because of these
Mhm.
invisible loyalties that are not made visible often until it's too late or so high conflict. Otherwise, where a productive conversation could be had, it cannot be because the emotions are too heightened and our own unhealed wounds and our inner child triggers and our
Mhm.
own family shit is going to get very activated. And that can take days, if not weeks, to try to settle back into ourselves. But you're also living your day to day life and you go right back into
Mhm.
whatever the swing of things are. But there's that inner child and those wounds that got brought up that you haven't tended to. So, one thing you were
Mhm.
mentioning earlier around the person who brought up, well, we start at this time and we end at this time. If we're the social psychology would support, if we're the first person to change the system, part of us
Mhm.
might be fearing, well, if I defect away from this agenda, is there even going to be a tradition left at the end of it? I'm not talking like one person of 30 steps away and the whole thing goes to hell in a handcart, but over the years, oh, well, Aunt Susie did this last year, Uncle Scott's doing it, like it slowly starts to shift away, that no one really wants to be the first one in a new in group socially, because you're actually in the out group. So if there's 30 members of this family, let's just say for conversation's sake, in this in group that follows this pattern, and one person goes away, now there's 29-1. It's not going to feel like there's any equilibrium. And it's very painful socially to be in an out group. We know what being outcast feels like. We know what solitary confinement does. Like being alone when it's, I'm choosing this, even if it's the healthier choice, can feel very isolating and painful when you are being loyal to yourself above all else. And eventually, there's usually more than one, right? Some of the 29 ends up evening out over here, and maybe this is where traditions split off, or we have sides, but acting like we're not aware of what's really going on in our family system only screws us over. So another piece of advice that I would like to give is own your own family's dysfunction before your partner points it out for you. I'm not saying shit on your family. However, no one is perfect. No individual is perfect.
Sure?
You and I are the closest, but no family system is perfect. And this is speaking from experience. Well, obviously all of it is, but especially my own personal experience. There was the guy that I dated years ago. Great person. Still to this day, I attest that he was a great person. It was the timing in our lives and the age difference that was just not going to make it happen. And I know that because we're still in touch. Like, we needed the time and space to mature, especially for him. He's doing great. He's about to be married to somebody phenomenal. She's great. And knowing the kind of the layout of how family systems function, I remember years ago, and I shared this with a family member of theirs, knowing this years ago, it was my own stuff, my own self-worth and self-esteem that I still needed to work on, because the person I dated before him was my super abusive, toxic relationship. And I had done enough of the work to heal to be like ready to date again. But when it came to holiday stuff, I felt so torn, because I was working on so much of where did I even land in that relationship in the first place. I was getting triggered in my own therapy, dealing with my family of origin stuff. And then I have this great new partner who, his family is phenomenal. Everybody has shit, but like his family is one of the best. I'm still friends with all of them. He was at my parents' house. I think it was Christmas Eve or Thanksgiving, whatever it was. That had to be Christmas Eve. And my dad, who I was working through a lot of shit with at the time in therapy, made some offhanded joke, so-and-so, like, she's a lot to handle. Are you sure you can? And I don't think that my dad was meaning for it to come across the way that it did, because everybody else laughed. And I'm like, okay, so this is a joke. But my inner child was like, how dare you? Knowing that I felt so fragile with my self-esteem and that I struggled to feel good enough in relationships. And I screamed at my dad the next day. How dare you say that? I actually like this guy. And he goes, I was kidding. I said, it's not a fucking joke. It was this whole thing. We had this huge fight about it.
Absolutely.
But it brought up in me, now in retrospect, I can share. And for the point of this episode, it brought up in me that I thought of his family, talk about a split. I thought of his family as so perfect, and they were arguably a lot more functional than mine was. But I was like, oh fuck, if he knows where the dysfunction is that I came from, he's not going to choose me. That was my stuff. He never felt that way at all. I talked to him years later. He's like, I never thought that about you or your family. Like, it was all in my head with the self-esteem, self-worth piece, the unhealed anxious attachment. So I had to go back and take ownership. I've done it in EMDR. I was like, wow, the story we tell ourselves, it doesn't mean that my family's not dysfunctional. We are. I am now fully aware of it. So years later, relationships later, even though it didn't work with the most recent ex, when he would bring things up, I had already beat him to the punch of like, just so you know, this is this and that. And I've mentioned this story before. For one of my birthdays, very early on, my mom was like, playing sullen, this and that. And he goes, you can just have some of my mac and cheese. And I said his name. If you give her some of that, we're done. And he was like, it's just mac and cheese. And I was like, it is most certainly not just mac and cheese, because this whole system, and we're walking out of the restaurant after. And he was like, I think the longer we're together, the more I might side with your mom. I said, you do that and we're also done. Years later, he's like, I see what you meant. So there's a lot to be said for, I felt more confident, even though we ended for other reasons. I felt more confident the whole family dysfunction system individuation piece wasn't going to be what undid this relationship. I take ownership and I'm very close with my family, but I have
Well, of
way
course.
more boundaries now than I ever did. I always drive
Mhm.
myself to family functions so I can leave when I want. I'm very clear about how long I'm staying or not. And I don't mind, right? I overcame that ultimate level of individuation. I don't mind if my own family doesn't like what I'm doing because I love me and I like it and it works for me. And I'm going to have to live with me the rest of my life. And I carry that with me into whomever I'm going to date in the future. Not to be disrespectful to their family of origin by any means, but I have a different level of individuation. I'm more comfortable being my full self. And if I also can't be my full self around your family and I have to fit in this box and placate and kowtow, I don't want to be part of that system. So be mindful before you really are in it. Be aware what is going on and be aware of your own family's dysfunction so your partner isn't the first to point it out, because I was the first to point it out in my ex's family and I was cut off completely. They're like, well, it's easier to just get rid of you than to have to face the fact that what you're saying might be true. So goodbye.
It is pretty funny when it's like,
Yes.
that's a fantastic theory.
Yeah.
And you're banned.
Yes. And goodbye. Yeah. Goodbye from Christmas or Thanksgiving. Yeah. They're like, this feels too. But again, if you take ownership of it, this is where we started at the top of the podcast. When you're sharing with your partner, hey, like, this is kind of jacked up, or like, are you sure you want to do this? Or I don't want to be around your family that look, you are, the goal is not for your partner to feel blamed or shamed. The goal is for you to say, I like you and I want to create something with you. Here's what I notice might get in the way of that. How can we as a unit tackle it? But if you're starting off with such unequal individuation, they're going to take it as an attack, no matter how you word it. That's why I said that too. We could give you the best scripts. If the person you're dealing with is psychologically immature, they're going to get defensive no matter what. You could have 50 therapists all co-sign, this is the Declaration of Independence in your family, here you go, and it's just not going to land, right? It's just not going to hit. So yes, be more aware of your own family's dysfunction. It doesn't mean excuse it, but if you can take ownership, it makes the conversation much easier. Don't let your spouse be, or future spouse be, the first person to point out, this is kind of jacked up, because you're going to take it way worse than if you would have realized it on your own and been like, oh yeah, that isn't healthy. I should work on that. This all goes back to the loyalties and the differing levels of individuation is usually where a lot of couples come into conflict with their quote unquote communication problems that everybody has. I've never seen one couple's intake form that didn't list communication somewhere on it.
Yeah, I almost feel like communication is just this like flex seal word for everything that's wrong with our relationship. You know, it's like I was about to say something that was gonna fire up all the like homeopath moms, but it's like the word mold, right?
Yeah.
Where like, yes, it does exist, but I don't know if it's in the context that you're saying, right? So is it really communication, or is it the fact that this person keeps on holding you accountable to what you're saying, and that's a problem? You know?
Yes.
Like,
And
something that I've been focusing on in my life is trying to get into better shape and to exercise more. And there was a moment this morning that I was like, oh, that's kind of spicy. But my alarm went off and Jill just said, are you actually going to get up or are you not going to work out? And it was like,
love her.
you too. And
and I'll see you after the gym. I'm going to go cry.
Exactly. Like, no, but that was what was welling up in front of me. It wasn't, she didn't say anything wrong. She wasn't
it's a
being
factual
mean,
statement,
but she's also not going to co-sign my BS, right? So how are we going to navigate that? And if we're always going to look at our spouse when they are holding us accountable and say, how could you? And then recognize that you actually enjoy living in a system of enablers.
And denial. Yeah. And if the enmeshment is so strong, the lack of individuation and enmeshment are so strong that if you do choose to sacrifice the potential for your spouse to be integrated, and you're like that, you're the weakest link, goodbye, and you still have your family to go back to, that doesn't make your family the more functional one. So there's something to be said there too. That's like, that doesn't, just because everybody's continuing to enable you or treat you as the golden child doesn't mean you're the healthier one out of the relationship. And if in the beginning that system was like, oh, we really liked them until they set boundaries, had their own opinions, called us on our shit or didn't participate the way that they used to because they felt more comfortable being their real self, they're not in the wrong all the time.
Correct.
I think there's a respectful way to be like, I don't want to participate in that way. And I think there's a lot of behaviors communicated through these invisible loyalties, the inside jokes. Do they try to include you in them? If there's a family calendar, do you get put on that? Are you in the family group chat? Are there people who, you can tell when you walk into a room when somebody's just been talking about you? Do you feel like that in your own family or going over to your significant other's house? And if you do feel those things, when you address it with them, how are they meeting it? Wow, thank you for sharing. Maybe it's not this, but wow, thank you for sharing this with me. I didn't see that, even though it's so fucking obvious. Or they could be like, I saw that, but I didn't know how to bring it up. And now that you're bringing it up, yes, we have to talk about it. How do you want me to handle it? Right? Not tell me what to do or just ask for help. But I want to talk to my family about this. Share with me and I will let you know what I'll go to them about. And that can be a tough time. Every couple that I know had a lot of difficulty around blending the families, especially when it came to that first holiday or second holiday together. Whether or not the extended families also joined in, it is pressuring, and the invisible loyalties are pressured when two become one, meaning they get married. It's like, oh, you're not going anywhere. Oh, we're integrating in this. And this is where you liking your spouse, you go home with them and wake up and go to sleep at the end of the day. That's the most important person, that you like each other. It doesn't matter as much if your parents or extended family don't like your spouse. You have to have their back above all else. Otherwise, it's like, okay, you have your family to go back to. Your spouse might be individuated from their family. Not that they're going to not go back in that sense, but it's like you get absorbed back into this unit. Your spouse is still solo. They orbit around their family, but they don't go right back into the solar system, right? You going right back into it also shows, you need to do some more individuation work, because those invisible loyalties start to fall away when you talk about it, but also when people opt out of it being invisible. And we have some scripts that we're going to leave you with of how you can make the invisible more visible, some journal questions if you have a pen and paper. If not, rewind back to this part. Who taught me that saying no equals being rejected? Whose peace am I protecting by abandoning my own? Ouch. What part of me still wants to be the good one or seen as the likable, fill in the blank, whatever your title is in the family that you're thinking of? And normalize that noticing loyalty doesn't necessarily mean having to sever the bond. You can choose to participate differently, and you will survive whatever emotions inevitably come up, including guilt. Guilt is an emotion that you feel when you're not doing something, quote unquote, right according to your own standards or values, or when you're going against a norm or a societal tradition or a family tradition. Guilt is a positive emotion to feel if you allow for it to be helpful guilt, i.e. guide you in a more well-rounded, values-based direction. But so many people can't tolerate or metabolize guilt. They just avoid it entirely. It's serving no one. So learn to journal about, why does this make me feel guilty? And is the guilt actually your own inner self going, hey, you're betraying us? You might also be betraying your family in a different sense by setting this boundary. But if you don't do it, know that you're betraying me, meaning internal self, or me, your spouse, saying that to you. So prep yourself for a lot of introspection when you bring those kinds of questions up. And then some scripts that we have for you to give to family members. Not that they're going to take it well, and you might have to call us after for family therapy. I love spending time together, and I need to do it in a way that protects my energy. I'll be joining for dinner, but not the whole weekend, like we touched on before. I know this is different from what we usually do, but I'm trying to find a balance that works for me or my family. And anchoring statements for yourself that you can honor both your family and yourself, even if it looks different. And the connections that you're going to be building from this are healthier ones, even if that means there's more time and space or less frequent communication. If overall that is healthier for the family system you go home to, that would be what I would advocate for going into this holiday season. You're going to come out alive, fingers crossed, maybe a little scathed, but the more you practice this, the easier it will get year after year.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
My last little bit of encouragement is just also walk into these conversations and these scripts with honesty.
Yes.
I found that It's just a lot easier to have the conversation if you have to say, "I understand that we eat dinner at 2, that's been our tradition, but that doesn't work for us." And it's going to actually cause it to be more difficult for us to
Mhm.
either attend or to be present, or it's gonna be bad for our family, and that's why I can't do it.
Yep.
I've actually stopped trying to hide the truth from people, where before we're like, "Oh, no, let's I don't wanna make them feel any certain way."
Mhm.
But then what we're telling ourselves is we're okay to suffer in silence for no reason.
For the sake of
And so,
tradition, yeah.
if you're able to say, like, another one that comes up is, for Jill, mornings with her parents were huge deals, and it was
Mm,
like they ate a specific breakfast
yep.
casserole, and they had this, like, well, actually, it was also blueberry muffins, and there was, like, a there's tradition there, right? And when she and I were just having an honest conversation, she said that would actually be the time of day that I would really wanna be at my family. It's in the morning because the morning is what I remember. And so then when I had to have the conversation with my mom of, like, "We're not coming over for the morning," it was a lot easier to just be like, "Well, but I'm not gonna deny Jill that," right?
Right.
Like, the mornings were never our thing till now, and for Jill, it's always been something that's meaningful to her, and if it changes and she wants to do mornings at your house and we'll swap around, then we'll swap around.
Yes.
And I think that that has helped me have more complicated conversations when I've just started from the position of, like, "This is why I believe this way, and I'm not gonna apologize for it."
And you doing that, you have your spouse's back. You're actually considering Jill's perspective, Jill's wants and needs, which when an invisible loyalty is at play, that the spouse is not considering the other spouse's wants and needs, as well as the
Mhm,
the inconsiderate spouse's family of origin also not considering that spouse's wants or needs. They
mhm,
don't view them as part of the family. It's like, oh, that's my son's wife versus my daughter-in-law is a big
mhm,
difference. Same as we've touched on wanting to be a dad and have wanting, what is the line? Wanting to have a wife and be a dad is different, or wanting to have a wife and have a kid is different than being a husband and being a dad. And the
totally.
inverse is true too. So if your family is the type of family that's like, oh, that's my son's so and so, or they're othered, no one likes
Mhm,
feeling othered. Work on that internal self of, if I'm a
agreed.
team, I have my spouse's back, they have my back, and your family, though it might not be the first time
Mhm,
you have that discussion, that might have taken a few tries because maybe your mom is like, next week, I know you mentioned the breakfast. I've never met your mom, so this is just a random example given this topic, but like a random
you're actually, like, spot on. You're
well,
spot like it
I know we did this, but what if it could just be this? The more you hold firm on your boundary
Mhm,
and remind and validate, I hear you. Yes, that would be fun. You're not denying whatever they're pitching
mhm,
necessarily. You're continuing to uphold, and we're
mhm,
still doing it this way. The early dinners thing, late dinners thing, my brother and I have joked about that too. The most important person to marry, either if you really like the other family, is somebody who doesn't eat at the same time because you can get double the meal, or we usually like to eat a little bit later. I think five
yeah,
is like the split difference. The ones who 2 o'clock, he's like 2 o'clock. We do this like whole shtick, and it's hilarious. And then some families it's 8, and I'm like 8 o'clock. Like what are we 20? I can't eat that late. I'll have heartburn going to bed. So if you haven't already, and if you like the family that you're with, and you do 2 different meal times, the bonus is you get double the meals. If you're marrying some into someone's family and you don't like them and they also eat early, just be prepared that it's going to be like, oh, I have to go over there and we eat at 2. Like, try to find somebody where you both like them and you eat around a similar time,
mhm,
ideally, or you don't. We don't run marathons. I would never ideally marry into a family that does. But if that's your thing, right? Those some of those family traditions can be wonderful to uphold, and you're actually
mhm,
wanting, hey, I want to keep this tradition alive, so I might seek out somebody who has a similar tradition set. That can be true as well. Often, though, we attract what is familiar, which might also ironically
absolutely.
be at the same time the coping skill of how to deal with what's familiar and maybe
Mhm,
unhealthy. Is they're just different enough to make me curious about what they have going on. And no family is perfect. I will leave you all with
correct.
that. Every family has shit, whether they address it or not. And if you are going into a system and you are the more healed one and you've had a lot of therapy, be a
Mm,
very silent observer the first time around, calmly and in a very mutually collaborative way, bring up to your partner what you noticed, not as an accusation, simply as a noticing, hey, I wonder if you saw this too, and see what their response is. Sometimes the relief is, oh my gosh, you've seen it too. I've been waiting to date somebody who pointed it out. And other times the response is, what are you talking about? Nothing's wrong with my mom. Okay.
I'm telling you, curiosity solves more conversations.
It really does. So yeah, go in with a curious mind, go in with an open mind, and don't be afraid to, like you said, use honesty from the get-go. Do not make up excuses and lies with your boundaries, because first of all, way too hard to remember. Second of all, what if those lies change? What if those fake reasons change? And then the person, rightfully so, not knowing it's a fake reason, goes, oh, well, this thing changed. Why don't you come over? Because that's what you said was the reason not to. And you're like, it's because I fucking hate you.
Oh, sorry, the diarrhea is back.
you can't put it back in at that point, right? You're just like, and it's just all coming out. So it's better to lead with a more regulated truth that you can double down on or triple down on than to make some excuse, especially if it's going to be an annual thing you have to deal with, right? Yeah. So I hope we obviously gave you a lot to think about, but I hope we gave you some actual, tools to take with you. Let us know how and if they landed. And then our next few episodes, we're actually organized, finally got our shit together by the end of the year. We'll be talking about seasonal age regression, which is the concept we touched on today, that we all regress back into our unhealed or younger selves when we're around our families around the holidays, especially if we have to stay at home and be in our childhood room or our teenage room from our past. And then our Christmas episode or Christmas Hanukkah episode will be Past the Trauma, which is just a funny spin on a lot of the holiday meals. So we're really trying to help you where we get a lot of requests of like, can you talk about families, blended families, etc. I'm going to touch on that, having, lived that the last few years. I think it'll be incredibly beneficial. So if you want us to add anything else, I'm on Instagram at Talia Bombola, and Adam, you are
Wild Ethos Counseling on Instagram.
We love to hear from you. And yeah, don't off anyone in your family in the meantime. Just go to therapy instead.
Yeah. And if you did, you weren't listening to our podcast.
That is correct, because you could not put it back and pin it on us. If you had listened to this episode, we're saving lives, is what I'm hearing. Yeah. Yeah, it's good. And we'll see you in 2 weeks.
See you guys.
Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Between Two Clinicians. We would so appreciate if this episode resonated with you, for you to share it with somebody, and also find your favorite podcast platform and like, rate, and subscribe to the podcast. We would love to attract more listeners just like you and have this message be spread to whoever needs it. So thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.